Another fact that broke a month ago, stunning the medical and political establishments. Contrary to previous studies, AIDS has killed more drug addicts than homosexuals, at least here in New York, and probably in other cities as well. The news is shocking because the transmission of AIDS by junkies is generally heterosexual. Junkies give it to their wives, their husbands, or drug-using hookers give it to their johns. The conclusion is that the window through which AIDS might spread into the general population is open wider than we once believed. This, right now, is one of the prime sources of the AIDS epidemic. The junkies come in, they shoot up with the same needles. Infected blood is passed from one to the other. They go home. Guys like this, they make love to their wives, give it to them.
Hey, don't touch me no more, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
And the girls give it to their unborn children, and that's what the epidemic is all about. Educational efforts have succeeded dramatically in helping other high-risk groups protect themselves from the disease. But because junkies are largely responsible for their own suffering, and because they're unpopular, poor, unorganized, and desperate, there's been virtually nothing done to really convince these needle-using drug addicts of their deadly peril from AIDS. But even in the vast field of official indifference, there are heroes, like Yolanda Serrano, the director of an organization called ADDICT, the Association for Drug Abuse Prevention and Treatment.
We're gonna go in the building.
I went with Yolanda into a pit of danger and despair, a shooting gallery,
So what are you gonna
hidden in an abandoned tenement building in a predominantly Hispanic section of Brooklyn, New York. This brave lady often goes inside these grim places by herself. What we found there was horrible. More than a dozen men and women, white, black, and brown, shooting heroin, passing infected needles from one to the next.
Oh, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. I can't believe this.
What you're doing now, using that water between all of you, is what could spread the AIDS virus. You have to use your own water. You cannot do that.
Don't you guys know that by now, man?
Between 50 and 80% of all intravenous drug users are infected with AIDS, obliviously spreading disease and death, not just to each other, but to their wives and lovers at home, and to their unborn children. It's estimated that in New York City, over 600 babies will be born with AIDS this year alone. That's more than triple the number of a year ago.
This is why you don't know who you're sharing the cotton with, the water with, who's infected.
You guys have wives?
Each night, Yolanda pleads with the junkies to be careful, not to share the needles, to use just the minimum sanitation and common sense to protect themselves, if it isn't already too late.
If you know that you're infected with this virus, or that you're possibly carrying this virus, would you knowingly pass it on to somebody else?
No.
Okay, because we don't want the message.
So who here's been tested? How many of you guys been tested? Do you have AIDS?
I have the antivirus.
So you're AIDS positive then?
It came back.
So you can give the virus to someone else?
Yeah, I suppose so.
What do you're supposed to. If you have sex with them, you're gonna pass it on to them.
Well,
You sleep with any guys around here?
one person for the past
Does he use condoms?
9 years. No.
He doesn't, does he?
Just listen to this junkie stoned indifference. Listen to how the disease is spread.
You know what a rubber is? You know what a condom is?
Yeah, I know.
You use them?
No, I don't use it. What for?
What do you mean what for? To protect the woman.
I don't use it.
You don't care about the women?
Depends what woman you're talking about. Because it's from the street on there. I don't bother with that, you know?
Yolanda and the other ADAPT volunteers are trying to sweep back a rising tide of infection in this community. Each night, she and the others hand out condoms, trying to protect the wives, lovers, and unborn children of this melancholy group.
How many junkies are there in New York?
They estimate 250,000, 250,000. Out of that, approximately 35,000 are in treatment. The rest are in the city of New York shooting drugs. many, many times a day in shooting galleries.
So
like
there's
this.
over 200,000 junkies at least who have no programs.
Right. They are sick with the disease of addiction, but this is not seen as a disease.
What's that?
Yes.
This report became the stuff of personal nightmares when one of the junkies threatened to stick me with his diseased needle.
Yeah, can kill you, man.
I later realized how futile my threat of retaliation had been. Even if I killed him, had he stuck me, I could have been sentenced to death. It was a helpless, frightening, repulsive feeling.
It sure was. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined now by the courageous and committed Yolanda Serrano and her volunteers. Please give them a round of applause for appreciation. Thank you for the work you're doing, Yolanda. Thank you. When you think of AIDS, there's a tendency to think of scary people like the